What is democracy? Is it government by the people, for the people? Has it always been the same? Or has it always changed? The British Pilgrims arrived in America in 1620. And why did they come here? Well, the British government was oppressive. Oppressive in the sense that they had no freedom of speech, and they were not free to believe in whatever religion they chose to believe in. So they came here to get away from British rule and be free. Although they were in a different part of the world, the British still found ways to rule over the Americans. They were allowed to tax the Americans, and the Americans did not like this. They wanted complete freedom from the British, and so from this came the American Revolution. The American Revolution was fought, and soon after, the Declaration of Independence was signed, stating that the United States was now a free country, free of British rule. We have seen democracy change thus far, but it continues to change even more once we see the first president of the United States be put into office. The Constitution was signed in 1787, and the Constitution included a document called the Bill of Rights, and the Bill of Rights included 10 amendments. But it was an idea in which we had laws and restrictions. We had restrictions, but we also had privileges such as the freedom of speech and the freedom to choose our own religion. And after this, the War of 1812 came into play. The War of 1812 was a war between the British and the Americans. The British did not want the Americans trading with the French, but that wasn't the British's decision, was it? And even after all these problems and war, the Civil War rolled along. The Civil War was a battle between the Americans, North and South, and it was because of political, economic, and slave problems. The Southerners didn't think the blacks deserved the same rights the whites did. They thought they were just slaves. But the Northerners thought they should be treated as human beings. Then, soon after, the Emancipation Proclamation was signed, freeing all slaves, and the North had already won, so the Southerners were not happy, because blacks were now equal. Democracy had changed enough, but it wasn't over yet. The 19th Amendment came forth, which meant that women were now equal to men, which meant that democracy was to change even more than it had already. Hadn't changed enough, though. World War II was the solution to the Great Depression that the United States had been in. Jobs were now opening, which meant that women also had job opportunities, which also meant that they were equal to men. Democracy was changing again before our very eyes. The Civil Rights Movement between the years of 1960 and 1965 is probably the greatest change that the United States has ever undergone in terms of democracy. Blacks and whites are now considered equal, unlike the first time around when the blacks were left out of the Constitution. Now blacks and whites are equal and democracy has changed once again. Democracy back then was all rights given to white men, but democracy now is all rights given to white and black men. We thought democracy had a set meaning, but 36 years later 9/11 occurred, and our minds were changed once again. People occasionally give Muslim people weird looks nowadays while in an airport because a Muslim man, Osama bin Laden, was the one who planned the attack against the United States. But does this mean that democracy will now exclude even legal immigrants? We now know that democracy is by the people, for the people, for all races. But will it stay that way? Or will it change again?